everybody. We have another webinar coming up. We're going to wait just a few minutes, but I'm here with Tiffany High. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me in. I'm excited to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while. I feel like a year or two, but we'll just kind of chit chat here for a minute and then we'll dive into it. I'll introduce you to the audience. I'm excited for you to be on for the simple fact that, you know, we just met a couple years ago and I mean, you've been definitely a strong-willed go-getter from the moment I met you, and you
I don't know if that's a positive or a negative thing.
It's a positive. Your self-belief in you and greatness and achieving greatness has been fun to watch because, you know, I'm reading the book as we're talking about grit, and you just ooze grit, and you just have all the intangibles of, like, you're not the smartest person in the world, nor am I, but the will and determination that we have to become better every day is cool. And it's been fun to see that in someone else because a lot of people claim they have it. And I don't think a lot of people really do have it.
Yeah, I don't want to put myself in that category. I said that from day one. Yeah, it's crazy where things have come, even watching you over the last couple of years, personally and professionally. It's been amazing just like putting myself in a different circle of people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure anyone watching this knows that as you develop in business and in person, or personally, that you change your friend set.
Yeah.
And being in a room with you and some other guys, like every time I get in a room with you, I think, oh man, I'm still thinking really small.
We're crazy over here. But okay, I think that we could get started. So welcome to the monthly webinar, you guys. I'm here with Tiffany High. She is a flipper, wholesaler, real estate coach. She started coaching just a little bit ago, and she has some of the most successful students using Batch in its products and just successful students in general. You're having people do hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars of deals. We're not here to sell you her program, but what we're here to do is have her just add some value to maybe some of you that are new, some of you people that are looking to scale your business. And she flew out just for this, so I'm really excited to dive deep with her. But real quick, just give a quick intro, where you're from, how long you've been doing this for, so on and so forth.
Yep. So I've been flipping houses for almost 6 years. I started out as a flipper, actually. And then I went into wholesaling my second year in the business. So we've been flipping, wholesaling, and have a rental portfolio now for 6 years. We're primarily in Columbus, Ohio, and Kansas City. So we virtually flip and wholesale in both cities. We go really deep instead of wide. I know a lot of folks go wide. I'm a big believer in going deep. And then we have an education space as well. And we have about, 18 to 20 employees in our office in Columbus.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been an amazing ride. So this year we'll probably do over 300 to 325 deals.
Wow. I never got quite that big. When we were wholesaling, I think the most I ever did was, I think we touched 120 deals that year, but 50 of them was one package. So, but that was a long time ago. Systems and processes were much different, but let's talk about, I want to discuss our agenda real quick. So you guys, we're going to take questions at the end. So save your questions or ask them throughout, and me and Tiff will go over those. You could ask them for either of us, but I really wanted to dive into what Tiffany is great at. And we wanted to talk about how it's important to master one marketing channel. Everyone's told by everyone to do all these different things. We're going to talk about why it's important to master that first marketing channel. We're also going to talk about how to create winning systems, and then how to hire your first few hires, how to retain them, and how to put them on a path to where they're going to stay with you long term. And lastly, how to have a recession-proof mindset. A lot of people are asking about recession, what's going to happen, is all of this going to go away? And I could tell you, quick preview, answer is no. It's just how you think about the opportunities that are going to be given to you. So that's kind of our agenda. I'm excited to go through it. So let's dive in.
Let's dive.
All right, so let's talk about how to master one marketing channel. So I want to start real quick and talk about, we both mastered the same channel. I went all in on cold calling 5 or 6 years ago when we were running our wholesale operation, and we really learned how to master that. And that was our number one focus. Until we had that dialed in, we didn't touch anything else. That's literally all I did, was having my team cold call all day, every day. And I didn't even have VAs. I had our acquisition reps smiling and dialing and getting deals. It was 4 people. That's all they did. I made sure I got them the best skip tracing, make sure I coached the shit out of them. And from there, that's how we got deals. It was lean and it was mean, and I was able to be very successful doing that. So let's hear your thoughts on it.
So one thing I actually forgot to mention to you earlier was my first year in business, we mastered cold calling, and I did it all myself. And I mastered one list at it as well until I moved on to the other list. So we did 40 deals our first year off the foreclosure list in apps, and then we went into absentee. And cold calling was something that first I needed to master, like what data is the best data, especially starting out. So that way we're not wasting time on the data, because it's one of the most important pieces. And then how do I function the dialer? Like I needed to learn this by myself.
Right.
And then how does the sales process work? Whether you're doing it or you're hiring out cold callers is a different story, because I'm going straight into the sales pitch. Yeah. Where cold callers, I have a different philosophy than some people in the space, that I don't believe a cold caller should like highly qualify any lead. If someone wants to sell, pass it on to my team, they'll figure out the solution to help them maximize the strategy. But one of the big things in the beginning that became important was the data, making sure I have enough data, because it's mind-blowing, I think, when you first start getting in cold calling at how fast you go through the data.
Right.
And another thing, I started learning about all the contact ratio and abandonment rates, and really just figuring out how to maximize those KPIs and getting a hold of people at the right times. What time of day do we cold call? And before I moved on to the next thing. Because if you half-ass the first thing, and you go into another campaign, next thing you know, you're blowing thousands of dollars on marketing and you're not getting a return. So I think that it's just really important that if you're getting started, I would master it myself first.
And that's what I think is really funny, is everyone wants to delegate so quickly. I had to get on the phones. I had to do everything in the business. If you're going to train and put processes together, you should probably at least have a really good understanding of what that looks like. Train the next person to do that and then help you put those systems and processes together. But everyone that gets in, and everyone talks about this 10, this 20, this $50,000 check to get started. And what a lot of people don't understand is, how do you sustain that first or second check? Because you can get lucky. You can pick up the phone, dial a few people, just get lucky where someone's like, I'm ready to sell, here's a good deal, so on and so forth. But like, you just dove into so many particular things on cold calling, but people just assume it's just you pick up a phone and you dial. But like, if you want to be truly great and be successful as a real estate investor, I think people make it out and seem like it's easy.
Yeah.
It's so much work. You have to be creative. You have to be curious. Like, just because something's not working doesn't mean it doesn't work. You need to look into, am I calling at the right time? Is my scripting right? Do I have the right phone numbers? Am I getting the right skip tracing? Like, that's why I've been so big. I was like, if you use Batch for nothing and nothing else, we have the best phone numbers. People don't understand the importance of that, because you're spending time calling people. You want the best right party contact data, and we have that. And I have studies to show, I have proven this. We have proprietary data on how we're able to do this. But like, you want to call the right people.
Correct.
And you could pull any list, you could do all these. If you're not talking to the right person, it's all for nothing.
Matter.
It does not matter. And I think people discount the importance of actually having the right phone numbers.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's been huge, especially this last year. So we've been, and that's like another thing. Everyone, typically when you get started and you don't understand those things, like you said, you have to be curious. So if you're not getting the result you don't want, it's typically because you just got to ask yourself another question, like, what could it be? And then look at everything in the system and master like abandonment rate. If you see that your abandonment rate is increasing over the course of weeks, that means that something's going on with your numbers.
Right.
So it's saying, hey, your numbers must be spamming, or it's going to impact your spam rate. So if you are calling 5 people at once and 4 answer, only 1 can answer and 3 drop off, then it's going to make your number increasingly able to get spammed. And I think it's also on cold calling is just a quick tip on the dispo buttons. I think it's also important. Not only do you get the right data, you go through the right process on the phone, but how you dispo that lead becomes just as important, especially if you're outsourcing it to cold callers. Mm-hmm. And one thing I learned last year, and this is a quick tip for those that are outsourcing to cold callers, is in my current dialer system, I had this dispo button called callback. And when you start delegating it to someone external, like a virtual assistant, and someone gets on the phone, they answer and they say, hey, I actually do want to sell, but call me back tomorrow.
Right.
What happens is they'll put it in, they were putting it in a callback category and scheduling it for tomorrow. But the reality is when you start delegating these to virtual assistants, they're just here to power dial.
Right.
So what I did an audit on my system last year, and I had over 10,000 contacts in callback that no one was calling back.
Wow.
So that day I figured out how to scrape them out of that dispo button. I re-uploaded it as a new campaign, and we got a ton of deals from it.
Wow.
Because those were people actually saying, yes, I do want to sell, call me back, and then they never got called back. So we just completely deleted that dispo button now, where someone can't, if you are outsourcing cold calling, where you can't just like dispo it and say, I'm going to call you tomorrow. It just goes back into the calling queue at least. But now if someone says, yes, I do want to sell, call me tomorrow, we just submit it as a lead, because I would rather my team have the chance of landing it versus, outsourcing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're going to get some more people that maybe aren't that interested, but those are deals that are on the board. So we're talking about mastering one marketing channel. So we just talked about a lot of things, but a lot of people aren't going to get that information when they first get started. So I guess, let's say you're just getting started. Like, how do you go dig and find that? Like, your coaching isn't for newbies. Like, It's not. Like, you want people that have already done a handful of deals, and then you help scale them to like crazy success. But for someone new, where can they go and learn these things? Or do you think it's just kind of a personality thing to where they have to be curious and eager to learn? Because if you expect stuff to be given to you, and I don't think that's truly, those people aren't truly meant to be entrepreneurial. It's just, you want the money, you're not willing to do what it takes to be successful in a business.
Yeah. I mean, if I were to go back to what I did when I first started, I literally said, okay, Batch has the list, they have the dialer, they have the skip tracing. So where am I going? It's not about going to the next guru. It's about going to your help support side and just watching the training videos. And I think that sometimes, especially even like the students I have that are super experienced, they move so fast that we're like, guys, we got to take a step back, and we still have to start with the basics. We need to go teach ourselves how to use the system. So if I know I can buy a list, how do I buy it? Okay, great. How do I move it to the next step? And then document that along the way. So if I can document it along the way of learning on my path, then I eventually delegate it out, pass it off, and say, here's how you do it now.
Right.
And I think that it's not always about the next best education or learning the next thing. It's literally, the system already does it. You just got to learn it and put it to play.
Yeah, we teach and we have tons of trainings, and I feel like not enough people really sit down. It's not fun and it's dry, but you have to learn what is the best practice for, using batch leads or batch dialer or using them together. Like, we have all of that stuff there. Now, our goal is to continue to do a better job on explaining the importance, but having someone like you really say that, like, those are some of the things that you need to do. Is it takes work, and you have to learn, and you have to put in that time of what's not fun. Now, I don't think you should necessarily be doing that all day. That's when you should be prospecting.
Yeah.
But at night, that's when you do the stuff that other people aren't willing to do. And that's what makes you successful, and the other person quit after 2 months because it just didn't work. No, you just really didn't learn or put in the time.
Yeah, I'll never forget my first year in the business. I woke up every day at 5 a.m. because I'm the systems person, Josh isn't. So I would literally, from 5 to 7 a.m., I would pull my list, skip trace it, clean it, stack it, do whatever I had to do next. And then by the time Josh was ready to go, I was like, here's your phone system, press play. And because I hated doing the sales part. So, but then I would move on to income producing tasks. And one of the big things I always stress to people, no matter how small, big, medium sized you are, is that some of these things you chose to go get started in this. You're choosing a path of, working for yourself or trying to do something that's getting extra deals on the side, whatever it is. But because you're choosing it, you have to understand that it takes the work to get there. And I feel like so many people come into the business thinking that, oh, I'm going to work on my business in the next year. And I'm like, no, I actually work more now than what I did 6 years ago.
So do I.
So, and back then I woke up, like I said, just to get campaigns ready because I wasn't the master. I didn't understand it all. I had to keep going back and watching training videos to know how to get it set up by 8 or 9 a.m. And then I would do work, and then I had to learn things like QuickBooks and, all these other things, right? So I'm doing that till midnight. But I wouldn't be here today if I didn't put in that kind of work. And it always, the next step, no matter how small or big you get, there's always the next thing you have to learn. no matter how big you get.
So you'll be to NetSuite next, just to let you know.
What's that?
That's after QuickBooks.
Oh, okay. Well, so my accountant can handle that. So I guess going back to cold calling, I feel like cold calling is going to be here forever. And now that doesn't mean that rules don't change and, you have to adapt to what the industry forces you to do. I still think that even if it's click to call, hand dialing, power dialing, it'll still be here. It's just a matter of adapting.
Yeah, it's really identifying. We have a lot of tools in Batch Leads to really chop up and identify what our assumption to be the most likely people to sell. We're actually working on some AI technologies and putting some algorithms together to actually have some of this stuff in the future. Like, this is some of our big goals, 2-3 years from now. It's like, how can we help our customers identify, like, we could actually have algorithms proving like this property is probably going to sell in the next 6 months, and actually start showing that to people. So that's something that this is years away. But
so I know that I started with cold calling, but what are you seeing, or what do you feel is the best campaign to master first?
Honestly, it depends. If you're new, it could be a lot of things. Like, I think if you're just getting started, either virtual driving around for dollars, which you could do in Batch Driven right now, and just identifying and looking for ugly houses and then just calling them right there, because you're looking at their house. You could actually be like, hey, see your house, it looks like it's in disrepair, or you can see that it's vacant. Because when you're just getting started, you're nervous. If you're just calling off a list, you have no idea what you're looking at or who you're talking to. I think that's a great way to get started. And I still think cold calling, I think being proactive instead of reactive is, cold calling is probably the best way to really get started and scale. And that's when you could add in some texting after that, or some PPC after that, because texting, as we know, has gotten much harder, but it still could be a part of it. It just can't be the primary function of your business. But you could still have very targeted people that you're going after, but that goes all the way back to the right list, knowing the systems. You can't just spray text like back in the day when that's what you could do. You can't do that. Laws changed, regulations changed, and the carrier said no more. But should you stop doing it? No, because the more people are going to stop saying this doesn't work. Now, less people are getting text messages about, buying homes. Now you do have more opportunity. You're going to slide in. If you slide into the right person at the right time, you don't have any competition. Now you have a really hot lead.
Yeah. Going back to the driving for dollars, you're actually bringing back memories, because I actually forgot about this. But when I started cold calling, I actually did driving for dollars first. And we would door knock everything. And what I would do is I would drive the neighborhoods. I actually would take my mother-in-law with me, and I would be like, you go right, I go left. And we would combine and door knock, and then we'd write down the address, and we didn't have the systems that we do today. So I would go home, skip trace them, and I still have all the folders with like tons of papers of driving for dollars.
Right.
But I mean, I always think that, like, as time goes on and you guys grow and scale someday, like, you forget about the basics, and there's still money to be had in that.
We were doing bandit. So we did a lot of bandit signs. When I first started, cold calling wasn't even a thing yet. Like, when we first got started, what we did was bandit signs, direct mail, and we had no idea what we're doing with Google PPC, but that was before it was even a thing. And we just went like nationwide campaigns were the cheapest. So we had a website up, and we were, me, Danny, and Jared, my partners at the time, were just inbounding leads all over the country trying to figure out if this is a deal or not. We had no idea, but that was our problem and then we leaned out to where we're like, okay, bandit signs are expensive. You have to hire people to go put them out. You could get in trouble. So we stopped those. So we got really targeted with direct mail, and then we got really targeted, or we stayed very broad with the PPC stuff at that time. And then once cold calling came in, that's when we brought in the dialer at the time, and we really started getting targeted with that. And that's where we really started seeing success, was with the cold calling front. And I just think it's a great way to cut your teeth, learn how to do something, and then you could start adding in other things. But I think it's the best way, because it's a proactive model and you're having to build systems and processes to do it properly. And I think it creates a good foundation for when you're going to do that with other marketing channels in the future. Yeah, I've been doing cold calling since day one, and it's been my best performing campaign for 6 years now. Yeah. That, and we just started doing super heavy direct mail this last year, but cold calling's always been the top campaign. All right, let's go to, well, we stuck on that for a while. So let's talk about kind of piggybacking off that, how to create, winning systems. We've kind of been talking about systems, and I want to touch on this again is I think understanding how to actually use the system is great, but we talked about it is I think you have to understand how to sell even more. Like if you had to do one thing, you talked about before we got on, your first 60 deals were done on Excel sheets.
Yep. Now I couldn't hire a staff and them operate on that, but for me, doing it by myself and getting deals done, that's what we did.
But now we have, Batch is so cheap, or Batch Lead is so cheap. Like you have a place where you could host everything, have everything
we didn't have
organized.
that back then.
Like, would you pay $100 for that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Man, if I could only show you how we were operating 6 years ago.
But like, honestly, you should wake up early, learning the systems and how to better you using the tools. That should be your 5 to 7, 5 to 8 type stuff, 6 to 8.
Yep.
And then from there you should be prospecting, and then you should also be really working on how do I get better at selling? And I hate calling it selling.
Yeah.
Like how can you find more solutions to help homeowners? Like I always looked at is what is their problem? Can we or can't we solve it? And what's the best way to do that for us both to be happy?
Yeah.
Like that, I ingrain that in my team.
I think if I go back to my first year and I was only working off one list for a long time, which was the foreclosure list.
Which is the hardest list.
Yeah. And so I was doing subject to deals and trying to get creative with it. And ultimately, I just got to this point, other than driving for dollars, we would call people, but I just wanted to figure out how do I help like one, I don't know what the right word is, genre of list.
It's the same thing as how to master one marketing channel.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this walking over to this building is how do you master one thing? Like, are you going to wholesale to fix and flippers? Or is your niche going to be, am I looking for properties for buy and hold investors? Like everyone says, just market a list, but like you should start off with reverse wholesaling. Like get good at something and then add the next thing. Like you shouldn't be marketing to multifamily and to, I think the best thing to start is work with fix and flippers, lower income neighborhoods to where you could really define a buy box and market specifically to them. You could do this type of sales price. I don't want to go above this. You could create that whole criteria, but you need to start somewhere, and everyone is told to just start. But like, I think the more intentional you are with what you're doing and really learning it, that's when you can start adding other things.
Yep. I started with one list, and I'm so glad I did it because then I mastered how do I add value to them. And then I moved to the next, which was I went to absentee and probate. And then I figured out, okay, how do their solutions work? And then once I could understand it, then I could teach someone else when they came on my staff.
Right.
But if you don't master the solutions for each one of these different types of situations, and then once we get to hiring and you bring someone on someday or you think you want to, it'll be complete chaos. Like you'll be hiring someone on top of chaos and just throwing fuel on something that's a weak foundation.
Right.
So it's not just about mastering the systems. It's also about mastering the process of understanding how you add solutions to this seller on the other end of the phone. So I think they go hand in hand with each other because you can actually do a lot with less. And I'm big about that with even my most experienced investors. Like they go to these masterminds or different, whatever you want to call them, and they come back like, hey, I heard this latest greatest thing. And I said, don't tell me. I don't want to know because I operate so simple and have it so streamlined that that's how I'm able to scale. I don't overcomplicate things for my staff. And I think that that's no different than if you're a one-man show or 30-man show. And I like to give the example, my father actually came to me after he retired last year and said, hey, I want to learn how to get some flips on the side of what I'm doing. And so I said, all right, this is how I started. Go get the foreclosure list, figure out how to get it, or whatever list you want to master.
Yeah.
Get it skip traced, which he has a batch account now. And it's been really annoying teaching him how to do everything. But anyway, so he has a batch account. He now texts and calls in it. And then he does one deal at a time because that's what he wants to do. So his list is very small. He calls them on the phone and then he gets in front of them. He gets one deal and then he does the next after that. And it's been super successful. He does one like every 60 to 90 days. And that's what he wants, right? So everyone wants something different. But, he's making 30 to 50,000 a house by just keeping it simple.
He's semi-retired, probably making more money than when he was working.
Yeah, exactly.
My dad did the same thing, and it's quite annoying. Is he wants to flip one house at a time and learning the systems, and he's just like, this is so hard. I'm like, this is not hard. You're just not wanting to learn the system.
Yeah. Dad, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, same. My dad watches these too. But so how to create, let's get back on a winning system. So we're kind of vague about that. So if someone was new or just getting started, you know, what's creating a winning system? Is it processes? Is it mastering a tool? Or is it a little bit of everything?
I think if you're just getting started, I think you need to master the platform and master the sales process before you can ever delegate, hire, or anything like that. So if you have your own CRM, then master it before you bring on someone onto your staff. If you're using Batch as like, which I recommend if you're getting started, you're just getting your list, skip tracing your list and calling it and texting it all in one platform. So if I was starting, that's what I would do because everything's in one spot.
Yeah.
And make sure that you master the training videos and then create SOPs to how you decide to use it. And when an SOP is a standard operating procedure, and what that is in short is, you know, you want to write down each step. And I know it's super time consuming, but someday you'll thank yourself when you bring on someone onto your staff that literally they can look and be like step 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you onboard them and train them properly and you already have it built.
Right.
And I think that sometimes, especially depending on your skill set, when you start, you're either typically like a sales oriented person or you're like a back end operations person.
Right. You
either hate it or you love it.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you hate it or love it. You want to start a business, you want to run it, you're going to love whatever the hell you have to do to get to the next step. And I think that so many people get really good at getting some deals. And then when it comes to, okay, I do want to grow this, they didn't document anything along the way. So if I could save someone a lot of energy that's on here getting started, document what you decide to do and how you do it from the start. Because I didn't do that. And I built this massive team a few years ago. And one day I woke up hating my life and I had to fire most of my staff all in one day because I didn't do that. So if I could go back, I wish I would have, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. At least it's some type of outline that when someone comes into your company, that now we have something to train on, and then you can fill in the gaps until you get good at it.
We're going to get to that topic next, actually.
So I think that's like a regret that I have when it came to systems getting started. I wish I would have kept it simple, mastered it, documented it, then moved on to the next thing, documented it. And unfortunately, in the beginning, sometimes you got to do that in off hours. That is what it is.
And that's, I think it's really funny that, you know, people want to start their own businesses and think that they're going to get this freedom. Now, I think you could change your life potentially financially, but some people can build lifestyle businesses. But I think that's the trigger word that a lot of people promise other people, and that's not normally the case. You have to be so dialed in, and you have to, I think personally, get lucky to get a really good operator to help take a lot of that stuff off your plate. And I don't think you could trust that many people that often to do that, because most of the time those people are going to go start their own business. So a few and the lucky may get that, or if you have something really big. But even as we've grown, I remember me, Andy, and Evo thinking that we're going to get to a point to where it's not that we're passively in batch, but, you know, maybe we could get down to 40 hours a week. And the other day we just started laughing about it, and we're just like, this will never, the problems will just be getting bigger and they're different. But to be a leader, and that's what we're talking about, and how hard that you work, it's so important to, it's tough, because if you're going to have this lifestyle business, what type of people are you hiring that are going to work for you? People normally mimic the leader. And if the leader is, all they want to do is travel, like, why would they bust their ass and really work hard for you?
Yeah, I just had this conversation with someone in a different industry recently, because the owner is always traveling and then they keep losing people. And I'm like, well, it's because you're never present. And so they want a present leader. Until you get to a size, you know, as big as Batch, like, you need someone that's present. But I want to, if you don't mind, I'm going to go on a little tangent about freedom.
Please.
Okay. So I think it's a crock of shit how many people in this industry think that they define the word freedom as in, like, I'm sitting back in my house doing jack shit for the rest of time, right? I think freedom and happiness go hand in hand. They're literally one and one. They equal each other. And the biggest thing that we have to do, especially when social media is blown up the way that it is not define happiness on how someone else across the computer on your phone or whatever looks.
Yeah.
And I just hate that our industry paints this picture that freedom equals passive income, or freedom equals what? Freedom equals whatever the hell you want to define happiness. And so for me, I might go into the office and work 14-hour days, and I get calls from people in the industry like, why do you work that hard? Like, it's not even worth it. I go, I have freedom right now. I love what I'm doing. And when we go back to hiring people, and you bring up the philosophy of like, well, when they leave to go start their own business. So I approach the company as in like, I don't actually want to be making the most money someday. I want my leaders to be making more money than me so that I truly can take a step back at some point.
Right.
But the people that are in the front line leading everyone in the organization deserves to be paid that dollar that it takes, just like I did.
Agree.
And so one different approach I've taken in business is like, I don't think about hiring these managers and like, I'm not scared to lose them, and I'm not scared they'll go start some other company, because here's the vision, and there's a lot of things that we can do and make an impact, and I hope you guys make way more money than me, because that's the whole point of this. My goal is to create an opportunity for you to make a boatloads of money, and we do it together as a team, because you can accomplish more as a unit than one person.
Agreed.
But I just wanted to take a step back about freedom, because I think so many people get into this business and they came in because they're like, oh, real estate creates freedom. No. First define freedom for you. And that's what you have to do. And I think so many people jump into this business and we aren't like, where are we trying to go? So that we can backtrack to what that takes.
And real quick, we're not trying to push you away from being an entrepreneur. We're trying to tell you the hard truth, because me and Tiffany have been through it. Like, I didn't come from anything and I've had to work really hard. But like, I agree. Like, I have the freedom to love working in my business every day. And that's what I love to do. But like, I hate the picture that's painted. Like, I think you just proved a great point. Now, some people may want that and get to that, and that's great. But I don't think if you do have that mindset, you're never going to have a growing, thriving business. You just won't.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people will get in and they get started, they do deals, and then they chase the next best thing, because they think that that's what's going to create the freedom. And a lot of people have been like, why haven't I gotten in commercial? Why haven't I done all these things? And I said, well, I want to get really good at wholesaling and flipping, because that money that that it results in will pay for the things that I define as creating freedom. And so a lot of folks get in, they build a team, and then they just start chasing something else. So anyways, I just wanted to go on a tangent, because I feel like so many people define their happiness / freedom based on what someone else has. And real estate has provided me what I define as freedom, and that's just loving what I do. So I want to make sure that people like don't jump in and they're like, man, I'm grinding it out for 15 hours a day. It's like, well, no matter what business you start, you're probably going to grind it out for a while. And it's just like, the faster you master these systems, the faster you master these campaigns and understanding the platforms, the faster you get to the end goal.
Like, I believe that you should, if you're getting into real estate just for the money and you truly don't love real estate and what it's about, go find something else that you're super passionate about and build a business there. And then you could use some of those profits to buy some real estate to help with your wealth building. But like, if you really don't love it and love helping people and love doing deals, or want to impact the community by flipping homes and making neighborhoods nicer and doing all of those things, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. And I think a lot of people are in it for the right reasons. Me and Tiffany are just very hard. So like, I don't want this to be like, don't go do this, but we want you to understand what it really looks like. And we hope that you guys have your dreams come true. And that's what we're trying to help you with, all these systems and processes. So let's get to how to hire and retain top talent, because we kind of touched on that a little bit too. And I'll start is, you mentioned it, is having the SOPs, which are standard operating procedures. I'm going to take it a step further. When we hire someone at Batch, they have their first 3 weeks from the hour, this is what you'll be working on. And then their first 3 months, we have a checklist of month one, this is what you're going to learn to do. Month two, checklist. So there's a 90-day onboarding period, and they have a manager checking in every single week. And the first 3 weeks are very, very rigid and defined, because we want to get this person up to speed. We want them to feel like they are supported, they're cared about, and any things that they have questions on, they're going to get addressed, and we could help them to the potential to where they could be successful. And that's the same thing for any business. And that is actually one thing I'll say that we did well, and I'll shout Annie out, is she saw that very quickly as we started hiring our first few people, and she worked her butt off on building that out to where now we could actually scale and hire people constantly because we actually have something defined and put in place.
Yep. Yeah, the beauty about for folks in the real estate industry is don't recreate the wheel. Like some of us out there already have complete onboarding, recruiting, all these processes already built. And it was the hardest thing by far, honestly, to build because it's like the last thing you want to do.
I agree.
So anyways, one of the big things that we have the same thing. So when you start, especially in a sales role, acquisitions, whatever you want to call it, we have up to 10 days by the hour every day mapped out before you ever get on a phone.
Right.
And then we have quizzes and assessments and flashcards and all that to say, hey, did you retain what we taught you? If not, we're going to go back to where you didn't understand something before we just throw you on a phone and then you impact opportunity that's worth 20, 30 grand.
Right.
So let's start with recruiting because that becomes before onboarding.
Okay.
So in recruiting, we have a 4-interview process. First, we have a phone interview. It's basic stuff like, here's the hours, here's the location. Does all this stuff work? What are you looking for? From there, if they feel like it and they have a culture questions, culture is the number one priority for me along all 4 interviews.
Same.
So then they go to the second interview and they get a 15-minute Zoom with someone in my office. So we've delegated at this point, someone does the phone interview. The 15-minute Zoom has some of the same questions like, do the hours work? Does the pay? And then we ask some core value questions. And within 15 minutes, we can get a feel of like, do we like this person enough on a first impression to bring them in the office?
Right.
Then we bring them in the office. So now we're on our 3rd interview. We do an in-person questionnaire set. And then a very heavy part of that is core values. And then we do a working interview while they're there, no matter what the role is. If it's an acquisitions role, we say, here's a script. We're going to role play this, master it. We're going to put you on the phones. You have to contact at least 3 sellers before you leave. And so we get them on, and the things that we're looking for are, how do they maneuver the system? Like, can they type? Can they maneuver 2 screens? Because I, going back, made some hires that I didn't realize how much it would impact me if someone couldn't use a computer very well. So I looked past that in my interview process. Then it's like the biggest thing is, are you coachable?
I agree.
So what we do is we intentionally give feedback after each call. Even if it was a great call, we're going to give some type of feedback where we want them to adapt something. And we want to see, did you listen? Did you take the feedback well? You don't have to be perfect, but are you listening and coachable? And you'll be amazed at when we start incorporating the working interview, and then I'll get into the 4th interview about how many people you weed out, because someone can sit in a interview process like this and tell you all the things you want to hear. Then all of a sudden you start them, they sit in the seat and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm miserable. Like I didn't know that they didn't know how to type. They can barely use a screen or a phone, or maybe they're not the culture fit you thought because they just practiced their answers.
Right.
Once we get past that, we realize, okay, you're coachable, you're hungry, you did well in the core value fit. What we do is, if you're just getting started, you'll want to take them to breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever, something outside of a formal atmosphere if you can, and just get to know them. Like, how's life going? What do you like to do for fun? All that. And I think that you'll then weed out core value things. So like something might come out of the woodworks that doesn't fit your core values, even though they were really good at interviewing. Now, as you grow, you might not be able to do all this, but in the beginning, it's really important because your first few hires, if you make one bad hire, the amount of energy, effort, money, and just mental capacity it takes to do it again is so much harder than later on in the business.
I couldn't agree more how diligent you are. I wish we were more diligent with our hires because now we're much more diligent. We don't have the time to do that long of a process. And honestly, with technology companies or software companies, the runway of how fast talent's getting snatched up right now, like you can't even do that. So it's a little bit more difficult. But in real estate in particular, I think that's a great way because you bringing on the wrong person with the wrong energy, and the frustration that you're going to have personally, the frustration that they're going to have, and just them not being a right fit is, I think that's a great way. So if you guys take anything from this interview or from this webinar, I would say listen to our interview process and enable that. Because the first one, I mean, it's a 15-minute Zoom call. Like you have someone, basically you could sit there and just, here are the hours, does that work for you? Yes or no? Okay, I'm going to schedule a 15-minute Zoom call. Okay, we're going to have you come in. But I think, I wish that we would have had them get on the phones and do that a little bit more, because you're going to see if someone's scared or if someone's not, and then their mannerisms with adapting to a new situation, because you may be changing the script or changing some of the processes, and it just kind of shows what type of, I think it's incredible. I think that's great advice. And this could be for any position. This doesn't need to be a sales rep.
We do it for our transaction person, ops, every role now. They have to go through a working interview, because we'll get a feel for, like, I'll give you an example, and this is kind of extreme, but it's kind of funny too. This guy supposedly had 8 years of phone experience with Spectrum. So we're like, oh, he's going to be like real comfortable on the phone, right? Came into the interview, we've thrown him on the phones, and he had a panic attack on the phone, shaking. And we're like, wait, I thought you've been on phone sales for 8 years. And he's like, this is totally different. Like, and I go, I'm so glad, because I felt very confident in the interview that I'm like, he's got great experience. He loves the phone. He seems coachable. And then you get him on the phone and he's just freaked out. So one question we added to all of our interviews is, how do you adapt to change? Like, walk me through an example where a software changed or something you had to learn new at your job and how you approached it. Because especially at a small company, we adapt fast. We're not a big corporation where we have to take months to approve something.
You're very agile. It's where Tiffany could come in the morning and she has a new implementation that afternoon. And she's looking at her COO like, yep, that's a thing.
So I just think it's important. And honestly, I would rather hire someone coachable and hungry than them have the best talent all day. So we're actually big on, you can't have real estate experience before you come into my office, because
bad habits.
When they come in, they come with their own habits, their own say. I would rather you come as, someone who is flipping pizzas and I'll train you to be good. I would rather you come in and fit in with my team and have the same level of energy.
The grit.
Yeah, and just like the energy in our office, I want it to be matched, because it only takes one person to bring it down. And especially when you're making your first hire, their energy is going to drag you down or it's going to drag you up. And I can tell you from experience, nothing was worse for me at the time than when I'm trying to get to my first $250,000 in revenue in a year. Yeah. And then you bring someone on, and then all you're doing is stressing out, not sleeping, having anxiety over someone that you're like, man, I wish I would have hired. And it spirals out of control. And you're like, I don't even know how to fire people, so I'm scared to fire them. And then you keep them on.
Yep.
So if there's one biggest takeaway, is go spend the time on the interview process. If someone doesn't want to go through the interview, like the way that you set the process, great. They're not meant to be right now.
Right.
Like, it is what it is.
Okay, I want to get to the last thing, because I want to take a few questions, and I know we both have you who are going to another podcast in just a little bit, so we only have so much time. But last thing we want to talk about, and we've kind of been hard and real with everyone watching this today, but having a recession-proof mindset. So we want to talk about, everyone's talking about the looming recession, and is there going to be a recession? Is there not? No one knows, but that's what everyone's talking about. I feel like a lot of people on social are doing a ton of fear mongering and FUD. And at the end of the day, I don't think it matters if there's one or if there isn't one. And I think there's opportunities in both situations. And you kind of dropped some gems when we were in the other office. I want you to kind of touch on that a little bit.
So let's go to COVID. When COVID went live and everyone didn't know what was going to happen, all these buyers backed out of the market. There was fear everywhere. And that doesn't mean that there's still not inventory to sell, people wanting to buy houses. The market still stays the same. You just adapt to what the market is.
Right. And
everyone else backed out of fear because of media and all these other things. And I said, let's double down. And we did. We doubled down and we made the most money we've ever made. And the reality is that inventory is still short. Now, someone that, in my market anyways, I'm in the Midwest, someone that was buying a $500,000 house might go to a $300,000 house. And so ever since I lost money on my first flip, which is a whole nother story, I decided, I'm only going to play in affordable housing. So if there's one piece of advice for someone new, just only touch first-time home buyer prices. You're much safer that way.
Agreed.
If you are wholesaling, get to know your buyers better and figure out who's still buying and backtrack the numbers from there.
Right.
Then from there, if you are taking properties down and you're listening, then adapt your numbers to what the market's saying. How do you do that? You go to a local broker and you say, hey, what are the new stats of today's market that I'm in? Oh, that's what I did last week. The days on market went up by 10 days. Mm-hmm. The price point went and shifted. Like, okay, great. Now I know how to adapt my numbers on how I purchase or how buyers are going to purchase. So these things only take 30 minutes to do, but because the media and all these people throwing out the word recession, it creates this like fear mindset, and then we freak out and say, okay, well, how do we just adapt to what's needed?
So my question to the people watching is like, what type of person are you? When turmoil or controversy hits you, are you going to run away and say, I don't want to do this like most people will? Or are you going to lean into it and be like, this is the opportunity where a lot of people are going to get scared and move out. And this is my time to shine. This is my time to get better. This is my turn to adapt. You got to remember, everything is temporary. Now adapt to what this temporary situation we're in is and utilize your talents to exploit that. But a lot of people don't think like that. If you could change your mindset to saying, like, I see this as an opportunity. So for Batch, it's like, oh my gosh, like, what if some of these technology companies are scared to hire people? Like, I'm going to get more talent. We could create more market share. And then the people that still want to do real estate investing and use our services, we're going to be able to give them a better product. So once we're out of the recession, if we get through that, and you have to understand, you may make less money. We may make less money, but we're not going to stop providing the best service and make sure that that service continues to create a bigger gap to where we are the best. And that's just how I look at it is, and I don't even think we're going to have a big recession. Personally, I could see some flattening out. There's still no inventory, and they're saying interest rates are going to tick up. These are still like all-time lows in interest rates that we're sitting at.
Yeah, I think if you're just getting into it, at the end of the day, what you're seeing now is just what the norm actually is. I think the industry just got
used to what?
Throwing money at them for the last 2 years, but now it's just becoming a normalized market to how it used to operate.
It's going to take 30 to 60 days to sell a home. You're not going to have 84 offers on a house and getting like, it takes time. Like you know, that's what I'm saying is you talked about this. Make sure, find out who's still buying. Sell to those people. What's their new criteria look like? Do they have to buy a little bit deeper because they're not sure if the market's going to go up or down or flat line? Like, we don't know, but what we do know is interest rates still aren't too high. People are still buying, and there's still a lack of inventory, and people still want to buy homes, especially first-time home buyers. So understand that people are creating this fear for you to click on a video, not for what they actually really think or know. And most of these people aren't experts. I could guarantee you 99% of these YouTubers haven't done 10% of the deals that we've done. I would probably even say 5%.
Yeah. I haven't put any fear mindset out there in any content that I've put out there. I think that there's going to be a lot of massive wins coming up. And if you're new to this, really focus in and hone in on, like we said, mastering a list or mastering one campaign, because I promise you it'll be consistent. Right now, there's going to be distressed sellers out there that need solutions, and the inventory is still so short that there's going to be win-win for everyone. And just stay focused on the prize and don't like let everyone's jargon online like evaluate how that you think of what's going on right now. Because the facts are that a normalized market, this is what it normally is, and our inventory is still like probably less than half of what it should be in most markets.
Yeah, and a lot of these people that have become influencers in social media have done this for less than 2 or 3 years. They've never even been in a normal market. They haven't seen market cycles. Like, welcome to real estate, folks. Like, stuff's going to change. It's never going to be simple. It's always evolving. There's always going to be the next crash. But like, how do you create a sustainable business? First thing, if you are making a bunch of money, don't go spend it. Like, save it, have a war chest, be ready for some tough months. Like, that could happen. For you guys that are new, make sure that you have a low overhead and put sweat equity into it. Like, put the work in. You know, the one thing that a recession can't do, it can't take away what you learn and what you experience. And if you stick with it, I promise you can see success. It's sticking with it, doing it, and learning and adapting. Everything's temporary. Forever. Everything will be temporary. How do you make the best of this temporary situation? It's that simple. It really is.
Yep. Yeah, even in 08, and I wasn't in real estate during 08, but some of my bigger buyers that have been in it for 20 years, they won big in '08. And that's because they were ready for it. They adapted their numbers and they just played in affordable housing, and they made sure that what they were doing was they were mastering the process. So when someone else was doing something, they were ready for the opportunity. So I just think that as long as you guys understand what's happening in the market and adapt your numbers, you're going to be fine. I don't think that there's like a recession to be worried about right now. But you never know. You never know what can happen tomorrow. So
no, but they can't take away what you experience and what you learn. Don't be over leveraged, and be ready to adapt, because people, as I said, opportunities are always there. People are going to be buying and selling real estate forever. It's just the fact. So
yeah, so one thing over the last,
some questions.
You want to do some questions?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because me and you could talk forever.
I know. I'm like, we can keep going.
Zeke,
so.
you have some questions to me? So we're going to start taking some questions. All right, we have a lot of them. What are the best lists to start with? We could start there. So I'll actually start answering this. I'm going to answer a little bit differently. I think each market's different. So I actually think that you need to test different lists. I'd maybe pick 2 or 3 lists, understand pre-foreclosure, and understand the persona of the seller that you're going to work with. What's the persona of someone in pre-foreclosure, or someone that has an out-of-state vacant house? You're going to talk to each of these people differently. But I think it's testing it and understanding your market, or just reaching out to people in your specific city, but reaching out to someone that markets over here and you're over there. I don't think that's a great way to go about it.
Correct. I think there's a few ways to do this. I don't think there's a perfect list, by the way. I always make that clear. I get deals off every list. But one thing you could do is, I will say, if you're going to buy a list in batch and all, I think that absentee is always a great list. So what the best thing to do is buy a couple, 2 or 3 lists to start out. And then the beauty about batch is it'll tell you how many are on all 3 lists. And I would start there.
Yeah. I don't disagree. List stacking is always good. Where do you get your script to speak with sellers and buyers, and what is a good time to start cold calling? I'll let you answer this one.
Do we have our script online? Okay. We have our script on our website if they can download it.
We'll just talk about it real quick.
Well, I'm not the salesperson on the staff, but we actually have a 3-call close. We don't believe in 1-call closes. So we're different than maybe some other guys out in the industry. We have a follow-up specialist role in our office. They have a basic script. It's a few questions that then they pass the deal live to a closer. The closer has a process script that they go through, and then from there, they get off the phone, they run their comps, and then they have an offer script that they go through when they make the offer. Now, the script, I'm not the salesperson on the team, so you're going to have to ask Josh what's on the script.
Okay, this is more of a technical question. Tiffany, what is your call flow like? How often do you call a number after no response? Do you drop voicemails after no response, or you just keep trying to call?
My cold callers still keep trying to call. We land deals today from people who didn't pick up for 2 years. They're still in my calling queue.
Okay. And then I think you do have some free stuff on your website, right?
Yeah.
What's your website? That was a question that was just asked.
TiffanyandJoshHigh.com, and we have our process script as for free on the website that you can download.
What are some simple steps for someone who is just getting started and wanting to do 1 deal per month?
I would buy a list or buy it off. This is what I would do personally.
That's what they're asking.
Okay.
So right. What would you do?
I would buy my 10,000 records of absentee owners, because you need to buy 10,000 records a month to stay fresh on data. I would cold call it and text it. Mm-hmm. And if you master a sales process over the phone, that's the next step. You will get a deal a month if you're consistent. That's if you're calling it every day, making sure you're calling during prime hours, which in my opinion is first thing in the morning and then 4 to 8 p.m.
Okay.
90% of our contracts get signed after 8 p.m., which is why we crush our competition, because all of our competition dials from 9 to 5.
Right.
But the reality is our sellers work typically 9 to 5 and they come home. So if you can call in the evening hours consistently, you should be able to get a deal a month, if not more.
But that's what people don't understand too, is let's talk about real quick, expectations. You have to build this pipeline up. So you may not get your first deal
Correct.
for 90 or 120 days. And you have to remember, just pulling a list of 10,000 records, but skip tracing that's another $1,000 to $1,500. So if you really want to do a deal a month, you probably need to save up $5,000-$6,000. Now you could try and side hustle it and drive for dollars to get that first deal, but then you're going to need I would say to really do this consistently, to at least get one deal a month, you need about $2,000 of marketing dollars, in my opinion, of that skip tracing, or if it's pulling lists or having some systems and tools. But that's the one thing people don't understand. Now you could bootstrap it, but to get to the consistency, like that's what I'm saying. If you get that first $10,000 check, you should spend zero of it. Or if it's 20,000 or 50,000, and then start putting marketing budgets together and start compounding that money that you've made with your first couple of deals.
Yep. And one quick thing on cold calling. So if you guys haven't heard of the term cash conversion cycle, what that means is when I spend $1 today, when do I close a deal and make money on that dollar I spent today? And cold calling is cold. So typically you land the deal on follow-up. That's, you know, how these cold channels work.
Right.
So when you start mastering cold calling, stick with it, because it takes 4 to 5 months of calling that same list and following up on your leads to become consistent. So don't start cold calling, do it for 30 or 60 days, and then make a judgment on if it's performing or not. Our exact stat, which keep in mind, I've been doing this for a long time, so we have a lot of leads in the system, but ours is 167 days that a cold call lead is in my system till I land it in contract, and then 30 days for a wholesale and 90 days for a flip. So now you can see I spend $1 today on cold calling and I make my money consistently 6 months from now. That doesn't mean you're not going to get deals in between, but to be consistent every month, you have to live out the campaign and give it the time to perform.
I couldn't agree more. Hi, Tiffany. With the new climate and talks of possible recession, what criteria are you recommending to pull from list and skip trace?
I haven't changed the list because I don't think the list has anything to do with it being recession. Everyone's still going to be selling a house or going to be buying. In my opinion,
if you really think about it, let's say there is a real recession that happens, is I would be calling absentee out-of-state owners to where you could potentially get people that might start unloading second or third homes or something like that, is where my mind particularly goes. But that's just...
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's just using logical reasoning. It's like, what's the first thing? And that's sometimes what you have to think is, Tiffany says, sometimes I just ask the question. Like it's a lot of times it's just logical. It's like, okay. And then if there's, foreclosures start happening, let's say all these people that bought in the peak right now and there is a recession, people are going to be upside down. So there's going to be some foreclosures, and that's where you could get back into creative short sells and working with banks on short selling and stuff like that. But as I said, until that happens, I wouldn't really worry about it.
Yeah, I think the better question with that, I think what they're trying to accomplish with the question too is you have to adjust the numbers right now, because all the sold comps haven't adjusted yet to the market.
Right.
So one thing that we're doing in running comps is we're taking the ARV and shaving off 5 to 10% depending on the area.
Yep.
And then running that and then making my offer based on that. Because the reality is what the comps were closed at the last 90 days isn't reality for the next 90 days. So we're in a shift pattern right now.
Someone said, I'm afraid to take the leap. What if I get into a legal issue or lose money? Well, that's the wrong mindset to start.
Yeah. I think that this is just one of those things. It doesn't matter if it's real estate or not, that I compare it to college, right? I went to college and graduated with all this debt. Like I went to college for 4 years, graduated with all this debt, and I was willing to go there and lose all this money. So like, why am I not willing to go after something I really want to do to potentially lose money? I just think it's how society's been groomed, is that we're okay going to college for 4 years, getting ourselves in crazy debt, but we can't go jump on a phone and be scared to lose a grand maybe.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage you to take a step back and just believe in yourself.
I would too. And on the losing money part, is you could really budget. You could drive for dollars, be very particular with houses that you go towards, skip trace them and call them on your cell phone. It is like, we're talking about how to scale and how to get consistent deals, but just to get started you don't even have to use our service. I'd probably use us to get the phone numbers, but that's, 15 cents a phone number. If you're not willing to risk that, then, I don't know what to tell you.
So my dad got started, right? He called me every other day. Like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. And I said, Dad, the 45-minute conversation we just had, you could have taken the action to go to the courthouse yourself, open up some files and figure out how to get in front of someone. So just start and take action towards the end goal. But the more you think about it, it means that it's removing you from taking these little mini action steps to get towards something that you're looking to accomplish.
Okay, and then we about have to wrap up, but let's do one more question. Let me go through this. Give me 1 second here. What questions should be asked that were not asked today? What important things to think about when getting started? I don't really understand that. Give me one more. I'm trying to find one more good thing. So people are still talking about recession, so we'll just end with this. What are the best strategies for weathering coming recession storms, since there are going to be higher interest rates and fewer real estate transactions? I actually think there's going to be more real estate transactions.
I don't think there's going to be look, at the end of the day, for example, I'm doing 300 plus deals this year. That's a fraction of what my city is going to do. And I don't even live in a very big city compared to Phoenix, right?
Right.
So I wouldn't worry about this big macro of it's almost like you're comparing yourself to a hedge fund then, right?
Yeah,
if your goal is to get 20 deals, trust me, there's going to be thousands of deals in every single market still had every month.
Especially if you're trying to get your first dealer. If you think about it, what most of us are doing and making life-changing money is you're doing nothing. We're getting scraps. This is peanuts. Interest rates going up. As I said, they're still not that high, and the market will adjust to that. But inventory is still low. There will be more inventory, more deals to have. Now, are those deal sizes going to be as big as COVID? I'm going to tell you guys, I'll be the first to say it. And no, there's not going to be these $100,000, $200,000, $50,000 deals that I just hear people getting day after day after day. When I started, it was 10 to 20 grand. And that's what it may come back to in a normal market with inventory looking normal. And you can't just sell something and make a bunch of money and buy something at 95 cents on the dollar and sell it at 98 because there's no inventory. Inventory will tick out, stuff will stabilize. And that's just going to be more consistent deals, I think, instead of a lot of people struggle because it's hard to get deals and there's so much competition and so many people buying. I think the dollar amount will go down, but I think the consistency of deals could actually go up for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. I still feel like I'm this little minute piece of the picture. There's going to be so many transactions, and now is the time to get creative. Now is the time to get in front of things when other people are fearing getting started. And I think that if you can get in front of it and be diligent, don't just do it one day and not the next, and then 3 days later get to it, because that won't create any winning solution at the end. If you're going to do this, you need to do it consistently every day.
And then I think our time is up, but before we go, what's the best way for people to get a hold of Tiffany High?
So our website's tiffanyandjoshhigh.com, but they can follow me on Instagram, and it's Tiffany High Official.
Okay.
And that would probably be the best way to get a hold of us on my Instagram.
Again, thank you for flying out here and doing this today. You're always giving tons of value. It's been very impressive to see what you could do. And until next month, guys, Jesse Burrell here, CEO of BatchService. Until next time, let's get it.